Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Headliners. I am Simon Evans. Very shortly, my comedy guest and myself will be taking a look at Wednesday morning's papers. But first, here's Bethany with the news headlines.
Hello there, I'm Bethany Elsey here to get you up to date from the GB newsroom. The UK's biggest rail strike for almost 3 decades caused major travel disruption to millions of people today, and there's more to come this week. 80% of train services are cancelled as some 40,000 members of the RMT union walk out again on Thursday and Saturday. Rail staff are concerned about jobs and working conditions, and they're demanding a pay rise in line with inflation. Network Rail's chief executive, Andrew Haynes, told GB News to fund it, practices will have to be modernised.
We either tax the taxpayer more, or we as a system become more efficient. And I think the first option would be unforgivable given all else that's going on at the moment. So we've got to become more efficient. We've put forward really credible, reasonable changes to working practices which would make us a more efficient business, and we could then share some of that in a decent pay rise to our colleagues. And the RMT, they walked away from the talks and they're having their moment of glory, but it's a real shame.
A former advisor to the Labour leader is warning there will be an explosion within the party if it disciplines frontbenchers joining picket lines in support of striking rail workers. Simon Fletcher is warning there's resentment and irritation within the party over its current position. It's understood Sir Keir Starmer is considering possible disciplinary action after he reportedly banned MPs from joining demonstrations. The government has admitted most people won't benefit from Boris Johnson's new housing scheme, which will allow welfare payments to secure mortgages. Critics have pointed out that welfare rules mean universal credit stops entirely when a person's savings exceeds £16,000, a sum that wouldn't be enough for a deposit in parts of the UK. A man who murdered a couple in their home while their children slept upstairs has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 38 years. Stephen and Jennifer Chappell were both stabbed 6 times in November last year in Somerset. Afghanistan veteran Colin Reeves, who was their neighbour, killed the couple after a long-running dispute over parking. And the Director of Public Safety in Texas said the law enforcement response to the Uvalde school shooting, in which 19 children and 2 teachers were killed, was an abject failure. Stephen McCraw told a Texas Senate hearing that terrible decisions were made by the on-site commander and officers who responded. He blamed a lack of training, which he says cost officers valuable time that may have saved lives. On TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now, let's get back to Headliners.
Thank you, Bethany. Hello, welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me, 2 people who over the last few months here on Headliners I've come to know. Anyway, it's Josh Howie and Dana Alexander.
Hey, Matt.
They always set me up as if there's some hostility.
I feel the same way about you.
You do. You know me, and that's all.
I know you.
That's all you need to say at this point.
What was your name again?
Simon Evans. I have to repeat it adequately. Anyway, listen, you look splendid. You in particular look splendid, Dana. I can't help
Thank you.
You've got to do a little bit more of an effort than Josh on this occasion.
I was just actually saying I look like I should be like selling coconuts on a Thai beach in this outfit. But I'll
vibrant, I think. So
I've dressed like a Mexican cocaine dealer.
Yeah, that's true. The baggy, shapeless shirt it usually implies huge wealth or utter poverty, doesn't it?
I'm going for the huge wealth today.
Yeah, excellent. The aristocrat of the streets. Let's have a look and see what we got the front pages this time. We're opening with the Telegraph. The double-digit rise for state benefit, pensions and benefits. That will be one of the main stories we'll be taking a look at, and a photograph there illustrating the chaos, the standstill of the rail strike. You either get chaos or standstills, and that's very much going for the standstill end of the spectrum. Then we have The Independent, who have PM accused of race to the bottom on pay deals, and yet another abandoned railway terminus there. By the look of it, the Guardian have Tory bill accused of fatally weakening human rights. They're zeroing in on the Rwanda immigration exercise, and also Stonehenge, which is welcoming back revellers after 3 long years of abandoned solstice celebrations. The Financial Times, they say that the rail union resists as bosses offer 3% pay rise for 2,000 job cuts. Another photograph of an empty railway terminus, and the Metro has Ghost Train Britain and Gold Age pensions. Those two main financial stories once again. Finally, tonight, quite a short haul of newspapers. The Daily Star have They Think It's All Uber. It is now. So those are the front pages that we have so far. Let's take a dive inside. So we begin with Wednesday's Telegraph and their leading headline, which is on pensions, Josh.
Yeah, so pensions are going to go up, it looks like about 10%, because from next year the whole triple lock is coming back into effect. So pensions and also benefits are going to rise according to that rate. The triple lock being, of course, they take the highest of the inflation, pay growth, or 2.5%, whichever one's higher. Obviously, inflation, as it's in a bit of a runaway situation at the moment, is going to be higher. They're saying that's 10%. So people will be getting a lot more money, and pensions will be going above £10,000 for the first year for the first time.
Although
ever.
When you say it like that, it's not actually very much, is it? Although I don't mean to be disrespectful to anybody who's working for that much, which some people do, but it's not a huge amount of money when you say it like that. Whereas you say 10%, it sounds an extraordinary amount of money. But I suppose it's the size of the demographic as well.
Yeah, and how many people within there need that money. The benefits going up, I think that's the way that has to happen, otherwise, because they're already on the borderline.
Yeah.
But let's be real here, there are a lot of baby boomers, nice big houses, in a pretty good situation at the moment, who don't really need the extra £1,000 a year.
No. What would you do with it, Dana?
What would I do with an extra, like, what can you do with it now? By the time I get it, I'll be able to buy a package of peanuts.
Oh, we'll never get there. Pension age is being kept ahead of us.
I actually thought that this government was being very tactical. I looked it up, and baby boomers vote Conservative 65%. He knows what he's doing, but it's not sustainable, of course, because they don't become an earning tax bracket, and there's so many of them, and there's not enough people really to support them.
True.
So
Sam Ashworth-Hayes, who was just speaking on the previous programme, says that this government have decided essentially that they will fund the elderly, and they will support the elderly, and they will bleed the young dry. They will prevent the young from having enough houses to buy, and they will prevent the young from being able to start their own families, and it's got to be a short-sighted policy sooner or later, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, at the moment, obviously, real wages are going down and taxes are going up. I mean, it's just this generation just getting absolutely battered from both sides.
And we talk about sort of divisive policies, and that usually means, the divisive left and right and between races and LGBT and so on. But the young and old divide is a significant one, I think, and it would be a mistake to create too much of it.
I think so. I think I'm what people would call a millennial. Exactly. I'm 40 years old. And what I'm noticing is the difference in the cost of living. Fair enough, I was in Canada, but how much you could get for that money when I was 20 versus now, both in Canada and the UK, when you actually look back on the indexes.
You can buy a couple of miles of
I had a one-bedroom apartment in the hood, but it was like $350. That's nothing.
I remember when I went to Canada, this was 20 years ago, I was last in Vancouver, in Starbucks, they had real maple syrup that you could just add as much as you wanted to your coffee, free. I mean, that's prosperity. Actual maple syrup.
You had taken
That's over.
If you'd taken a couple away with you now, then 20 years later you could have sold them, bought a house.
I should have filled up some kind of suitcase and come back. Telegraph once more. So Keir Starmer is in the firing line. This is a related story, John.
Yeah, so obviously today yesterday was the rail strike. More are coming.
Yep.
And 16 MPs joined the picket lines against the leadership of the Labour's leadership. Wishes.
Yeah.
And a couple of those people are on the shadow bench and front bench. So we're going to see what he actually does to them. I mean, what happened was when the Ukraine when they got invaded by Russia, a bunch of Labour MPs signed this letter by Stop the War, blaming NATO for the invasion. And he immediately said, if you don't straight away take your signature, you're out the Labour Party. That's it. Yep. Because he wanted to show that the Labour Party had changed and it now was this
strong leadership.
Yeah, strong leadership, but also proud of being British and not siding with Russia like Corbyn did.
So do you think this? I mean, traditionally this has been more of a complex issue for Labour. They have, of course, traditionally supported the unions. They were traditionally funded by the unions.
Yeah, the RMP has made a couple of donations specifically to the Labour Party. So I think it would be hypocritical, but I'm kind of, when it comes to these strikes, I'm of two minds. As somebody who takes these trains, and we work all over the world, I've never seen a system that is more expensive, that is the worst run system I think I've seen in Europe. I don't understand where this money is going. Obviously it needs to come up with its efficiency, but as far as it goes, I mean, Labour traditionally has always, stuck by with the Labours, but I think Keir knows he's going to have to move a little bit more to the centre if he wants to secure,
I think a lot of people feel that the British rail service over 30, 40 years now, it's just not been fixed. The one major thing was, of course, the privatisation, which created a whole new raft of problems and didn't solve many of the old ones, to be honest.
The prices are wild. My tap broke the other day when I was coming up. I was at Euston Station and I had to get to Southbury. Of course, you can put your thing in and you can, buy the ticket. The ticket was £10.
Yeah.
£10 for a 35-minute trip. And that was one way. Come on now. What was it? Somebody was telling me, I was just in Germany last week, you can actually get all the trains, the slower ones, for a month for €9.
Yeah.
It's wild.
To get people
and this next story connects up with that one. This is Wednesday's Express. Grant Shapps is making promises he might not be able to keep, Dana, but this is on the same subject.
Yes, will they cross the picket? So Grant Shapps has to deliver a huge blow to striking unions with a vow to legalize agency staff. First of all, we have to look at how many people are being disrupted by these rails. I couldn't go to work on Sunday just because I literally couldn't get out of my neighborhood.
It was terrible. Today, to get in, because this is obviously day 4, I had to wait 2 minutes extra for my Uber.
My Uber actually said,
it's horrific out there.
Contact your employer and get them to send you another one. So I actually had to play a little bit of
hearing these stories make me so upset.
Well, I'll tell you
I think what's going to happen.
Couldn't get an Addison Lee.
What about the electric scooters? I mean, those are becoming quite a big thing on the streets of London. But anyone coming in from around the M25 now, do you think that might be the next thing, kind of like the whole of the M25?
They're like 30 miles an hour.
Electric scooters, yeah, they're fine, aren't they?
No.
I'm going to have rails, electrified
not even
rails
a
with individuals on them.
You can just see me tottering around.
But he's talking about, training up. OK, you can get agency staff in to do certain jobs, but I cannot imagine that they're going to be. You can just pluck people off the street randomly and bring them in.
Well, we saw what happened with the ferries, right? When they brought in all that new staff, they were inoperable, right?
Yeah, but this is what it takes to ride a train to the tube. So anyone who presses a button can just literally transfer. The idea is they can transfer that button pressing skill into pressing the button on the tube, and then it runs itself.
That is something that people need to consider. I remember when I went to Vancouver, this would have been in 2000, they had a huge strike, and the only thing running was the SkyTrain, of course, because they're operator free. So
technology's there, and it's going to happen, but they're pushing back against it.
It's very much like Top Gun Maverick, isn't it? In which it's the last
like
hurrah for the great era of the human-powered, the human-flown jet, the fighter jet with a pilot in the box.
Yes,
because that's
right.
the subtext of the whole thing.
Maybe that could be Tom Cruise's next movie.
Yeah.
So that he could be the lead.
Aslef.
Yeah, RMT Union.
Top train. Wednesday's Telegraph now, and the whiff of nepotism lingers on in Downing Street. In fact, I would say more than the whiff, this is a stench, isn't it?
Oh, poo, poo, poo.
Yeah.
Phew. So, this story that they wanted to go away, of course, it's exploded and become larger. Now we're getting part two. Part one over the last few days was that there was this idea that Boris Johnson was trying to hire Carrie Johnson, his wife now, but then girlfriend, even when he was married, to be his chief of staff when he was a foreign minister.
And that story got pulled quite quickly by the time, so we don't know whether it was...
Well, the journalists and people around are saying that it did happen.
Yeah.
And Boris Johnson saying it didn't happen, so we know that it did happen. I made that joke yesterday.
Yeah.
But yes, it's now part two. After that, it seems like one of Johnson's aides went to, who used to work for Prince William,
right,
and went to see if one of Prince William's charities might take her on board.
Right.
And that was immediately sort of poo-pooed, and they said, no, that would not be appropriate and whatever. So he's sort of out there.
But Earth Shot, what is like money shot? What does that mean?
I don't know, like whatever, just...
Is it like an
they're royals and they got charities, whatever.
In Pat, as you say, he's trying a thing.
But the great thing is...
anything he can get away with, he's on it.
Supposedly, when they did ask the foundation, they asked whether she would be paid. Because fair enough, she needs the big bucks.
Yeah.
Wallpaper doesn't pay for itself. You know.
Although somebody said to me privately on a DM on Twitter today, made a fairly good point, I thought, that on the one hand, the press presents Johnson as trying to position his, useless bit on the side in any role he can find for her. And they spend the other half saying she's actually the power behind the throne. She's this extraordinary Machiavellian, eminence grise, she's got these incredible sort of natural skills and playing. She's the puppet master.
Well, when she had a job for the Conservatives, supposedly that everyone was very happy with her. And she did a good job.
She should have been able to just find a decent job somehow. But in a way, it's like the curse of oil, isn't it? The fact that you're going out with the Prime Minister means he's trying to smooth the path. In fact, if he just let her get on with it, she'd probably be in a decent job at the moment.
I think she is, though. She did finally get one for animals.
Go on, Dana.
So.
I don't know. I think if she's puppeteering him, she is doing a terrible job. Geppetto.
He's more like a bagpuss than a Pinocchio. Well, he's like a Pinocchio in some important regards. Anyway,
yes, exactly.
Wednesday's Telegraph next, and Putin is waggling his torpedoes in our direction, Diana.
Is he ever, Dana? Woo!
Just on the auto cue there.
No, so Vladimir Putin has warned that Russia will deploy its newest intercontinental ballistic missile, which is capable of reaching Britain in 3 minutes, faster than the train, by the end of the year. I mean, he's been threatening for so long. He's been looking to pick a fight. I think he's been trying to goad NATO members into taking military action so that he can perhaps justify nuclear action. What a time to come out of the European Human Rights Commission, right?
Yeah.
We may need that. We may need that. We may be refugees
Can I
after
just
all.
bring you onto this missile, though? It looks incredible. I've been watching a little bit of YouTube about
Satan
it.
Satan
2.
And the thing is, I find that very offensive.
15,000 miles per hour.
There's only one Satan.
Okay,
There's only one Lord. And how dare they say
that? It's his own personal reboot, maybe.
This is Satan.
But the scary thing is that it's bypassing most radar and missile defense systems.
Yeah, zigzags, doesn't it?
Which kind of seems counterproductive. Like, if you're going to go around the missile systems, why do you say, by the way, by the end of the year, I got a missile coming for you? Like, if you're really going to if you're going to get in a fight, you don't tell them, I'm going to punch you in the face. You punch them in the face.
Yeah, but they don't care because it does 15...
It
does over Mach 20. It's so fast, it can't be... It doesn't... He can go... Prime your systems. It doesn't matter.
The genius of the story in the Telegraph is this whole thing is based on the absence of a comma.
Right.
Because if you read the headline, it says he will deploy, Russian leader warns he will deploy Satan 2 missile capable of reaching. So it makes it sound like he says, I'm going to release this Satan 2 missile that's capable of reaching the UK, whatever. You read then later on, and then suddenly there's a comma. Hey, he warned that he would deploy its missile capable of reaching. It's like there's a massive shift there. So this is not an additional. I don't
feel that.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not like he said, "Here's my missile, and I'm going to get you today." Like this, they did say like a month ago, one of the propagandists on their TV show, and they also had like graphics of Britain sort of sinking beneath the waves. But the way that this is framed is like he's got.
That's a different one, though. That's the Poseidon torpedo. That's the one that creates a tsunami.
The tsunami, yeah. You know what I really find interesting is we have this idea that we're so safe in the West. Every single day when I leave my house and walk just to the end of my block, there is a memorial park where a pub used to be. It was bombed in the Blitz in 1944. That is in some people's living memories. You know, Britain right now is not exactly making a lot of friends with people. We got to be careful. I mean, we're still in NATO and everything else, but there might be a little bit of double standards to come because we don't know what will happen.
I think this is a good thing that they're threatening the possibility of nuclear apocalypse, because I feel like this generation missed out on that.
Yeah.
We got a lot of hiding under desks, and I feel like that made us appreciate life.
They've gone to the climate crisis instead, haven't they?
No,
which is
they need some nuclear fear in their life.
My whole junior high was a bomb shelter.
That's what I'm saying. That's going to...
We can bond intergenerationally. Wednesday's Independent now, and what is the number for this comedy police, Josh? What's going on here?
Yeah, so Joe, you know Joe.
Yeah, of course I know Joe.
He has been supposedly reported to the police after a fan of it, going to see him live, his tour show, found a joke too offensive. He is saying that this joke is actually one of the best jokes he's ever written. I've seen his act. I don't know this joke, but I can confirm that it must... It's not a great joke.
But it's impossible to find out what the joke is, isn't it?
No.
It feels like a PR story.
Yes, he's very good at the PR stories.
Only involves donkeys, but...
yes.
And willies or whatever. So... I remember, I don't know, you've had complaints. I remember, doing Banana Cabaret, and I had a letter. Someone wrote a letter to Dave, the owner, and complaining about jokes, saying I'd been racist and homophobic. And so they were really drunk. I remember these two women, they were really drunk, and and I had that gig taped, and I wrote out a transcript from it, and I said, this is what you said I said. This is what I actually said. I have proof about it, and this is what the joke means. And then they wrote back and said, oh, yes, I see what you mean. Well, I don't know why you're being so aggressive about it. It's like, you're trying to get me fired from this club that's taken me years to get into, and you turned out, you were drunk and you misheard some stuff. Nasty. Of course I'm going to be aggressive.
Dana?
You've got to let that go, Josh.
That was about 10 years ago. I'm still angry.
Has anyone had a go at you? Have you ever been pulled up?
Oh, all the time. I mean, the funniest thing about cancel culture, when you come from my demographic, people just waiting to cancel you. Like, I could be getting canceled in the 80s and the 90s. I think right now it seems to be on trend, as we've seen with Chappelle, Carr, Gervais. Obviously, they took the stakes a little higher when they went for the trans community. And in Carr's case, the Romani Traveller.
I can't imagine Lycett going after one of those demographics.
He's gone after the donkey. Never go after the donkey community.
Let's take a bet on how much material he's going to get out of her complaint. I think about 3 to 4 minutes.
I think
easily.
that's about the size of it. That is the end of part one, folks. Coming up, proof that balance is the key, Strava striving for street secrecy, and Elon Musk has a new daughter. Congratulations, Elon. He's down a son, however. We'll see you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio. On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping it.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. My guests are Josh Howie and Dana Alexander. Wednesday's Metro and Elon Musk's Twitter takeover may finally be reaching its rather messy climax.
Yeah, £35 billion or 40-something billion dollars. The board has been it's been agreed that they will allow this takeover to progress, meaning that because now the shares have actually gone down quite a bit since he made that offer, they're going to make quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we'll still see whether it's another obstacle to him getting Twitter. I personally think him getting Twitter, buying Twitter, is a good thing. I think Twitter has become non-democratic in the way that it presents certain views, for good or for bad. And there was a very funny meeting. I don't know if you saw that he had a meeting. He had this sort of call-in with his employees this week, and they were asking him all these questions. And he was just being very forthright, and people.
And he's not even their employer yet.
Not yet, but they were so scared and sucking up to him so much.
Well, he did sack some of his own employees who had been creating some sort of fuss about the whole thing, and bad-mouthing him and bad-mouthing the company. And he just said.
Yeah. He said, look, if this isn't for you, see you later. Go to find another job.
Yeah, which is reassuring.
So we'll see if it's going to happen or
it's
not.
Quite a significant profit to be made. If anyone who thinks that they are going to, it's going to go through at the agreed price, the current share is about $12 a share. So if you were to, but that's like something like 30% of the share price, isn't it? So there's a massive profit to be made, which suggests the market is not convinced yet.
Yeah, well. Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say, and I've been predicting this, for weeks and weeks, he's been just trying to get the price down because, of course, his original offer was $9 billion. He's taken the price down by $9 billion.
Yeah.
He's shopping it around, and you know what? I mean, it's so obvious. I don't understand how, he keeps going with, well, I don't know if it's more than 5% lots. How will he ever find this out? But he is saying that he's going to make things a little bit more demographic and make sure that it's engaging, but not too insulting. So maybe giving users a little bit more control about what comes on their feed, which I think would be a great thing. There's so many people I'd love to tune out on Twitter.
I think that as well. It's interesting though. I have seen some people. I have seen some people who said that it's that he underestimates how difficult it is to do that. That he thinks it's just malevolence. That there's bias in there because the people who work for Twitter have this kind of like collective groupthink, and there is a degree of that. But there may also be a degree to which it is much harder than you think.
I'm sure that the latter is very much true, but there's absolute proof that they have been totally dishonest in the way that and who they choose to hide and Twitter bans and all of that stuff. It's not cool stuff.
No, it's not. No, absolutely.
I think we also have to remember that people go to Twitter for different reasons. Do you know what I mean? Some people want to share their Quirtle score, and some people just want to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think
some people want to share their anatomy on the private channel.
Exactly.
Wednesday's Sun and Elon Musk once again, but this is more personal news. He has a new daughter. Is this cause for celebration, Dana?
Well, it's funny because he has a daughter. Now, what I think is very interesting is what he named his child. Let's see if we can pronounce this. Is it Exodarch Sidrael, which is basically an algebraic formula.
Yeah. This is a new child. This is a recent child.
But so this one, what was it? This Xavier.
Xavier.
Xavier. There's many ways to pronounce it. So yes, and the funny thing is, Xavier is not changing their gender because they feel they're in the wrong body. They're changing their relation to their father. So I don't understand how he stops being your father if you change your gender.
Welcome to transgender rights. They do not understand biology.
You know what? Well, listen, I'm not going to say that everyone understands.
That's like
biology,
the ravenous bug-bloated beast of Trull or something. I think it was in a Douglas Adams book. It was a very, very dangerous animal, but very stupid. And the best way to avoid it attacking you was to throw a towel over your head, because it would then assume that if you couldn't see it, it couldn't see you.
Yes.
It's a bit like, do you know what I mean? It's a similar sort of attack, yeah.
I'll be interested to see if he's going to take the money.
Well, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Your dad has that much money? You better be his best friend. Are you kidding me?
Like, Dad, I'm a boy and I'm going to play, let's play baseball outside and we can play catch together. I love you, Dad.
All you've got to do is get rid of your surname and just put Lil in front of it, right? Then he could just be Lil Javier. Or just
He'll always
like
be
just
in that shadow, I suspect.
Yeah.
Wednesday's Mail next. Looks like rugby is following swimming's suit. Josh.
Yeah, so Rugby League is banning transgender athletes from competing in international competitions. This is on the back of FINA, who the swimming body who just banned trans women from competing in women's international or any
elite
sports. Yeah, exactly. Now that doesn't ban certainly the swimming one doesn't ban trans women from competing in sport or play or swimming. You know, it just bans them from competing against women, biological women.
So I suppose what would happen in the swimming one, for instance, is you might be in high school swimming and there might be a trans woman in the pool or a couple of trans women in the pool, but if you're a female athlete, you can just kind of ignore them to a degree if you're trying to figure out whether you're on a trajectory for the elite.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? At some point,
you're not going to lose your scholarship, which is the way the things have been at the moment. So
but when you play rugby, there are two fears. One, that you will be outperformed on the field, but also there's the fear of physical pain, isn't there, as well?
Well, it's a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
And it's been proven beyond any doubt that scientifically, if you've been through male puberty, you're stronger, your heart is bigger, you have different capacity, all these different things. So for competing, and you see some of the sizes of like trans athletes against biological women, and it's the differential is massive.
And it's not just trans athletes that get banned from women's sports. Of course, we know the story of Semenya, the South African runner, right? So the thing that I find very interesting is the criteria to determine whether or not someone belongs in the male category or the female category has been constantly challenged and changed. So the first time they actually did a genital check, then the next time it was chromosomal testing, and then it went on to how much testosterone. Then they had to go into, okay, how do we prove that the testosterone actually, that was a whole other thing. So this isn't just, there's a lot of gray on this subject, and I'm really interested in how they will develop this.
Yeah, but that's intersex, which is a very different thing, and trans rights activists constantly trying to conflate intersex and trans issues as the same. They're not. But when it comes to trans women in sports, there's no. It's obvious whether they have been biological male puberty or not.
I don't think that I was.
No. I'm just saying. But people do. That is something that is a tactic that they use online. There is a suspicion,
isn't there? In fact, I mean, I had that Caster Semenya was in the news for a while before the trans issue, and it did seem, as you say, that it was almost being leveraged, or it was being used as a sort of. As a sort of access point to kind of go, oh, who can even say what a man or a woman is? Because they're all. It's a bit like that kind of. It's almost like a postmodern philosophical proposition. There's no hard edge between the two.
Of course, we're not going to use intersex people as the rule. Of course, those cases are, very slim. But I think it does come into the question of where do these athletes get to train? Because when the criteria changes, like it has changed, people who were competing were all of a sudden banned and couldn't. So, Neil deGrasse Tyson, if anybody is interested, has a really good discussion with Ben Shapiro on this. So that criteria might change. It might not just be along.
But men and women are never going to change, is my point. That criteria is never changing.
There's so many different criteria when it comes to who you even get to play against, right? Like, so if I'm in boxing, I'm not going to be able to box a woman who's half my size, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the sport.
Exclusionary by definition.
Of course it's exclusionary.
Yeah.
I've never argued against. You just revved up, huh?
Come on, Taylor, let's go.
I'll knock off those glasses, but I won't tell you.
Wednesday's Times now, and if this next story is true, it sounds like flamingos are onto something, Dana.
Doesn't this sound fun? So they asked 1,702 middle-aged people to stand on their leg for 10 seconds. So you place the one foot down and then the other leg up behind. You guys want to try it?
What do you do? You stand up with one foot,
so basically,
one leg behind
up,
the other one, right?
Yeah, and then so one on the floor, then the other one like this, and then you stand
what happens?
for 10 seconds.
And then what if you don't?
Okay, then you're going to have heart disease, you're going to die early.
As far as our viewing public is concerned.
How about you? You're not even going to bother. You know the answer.
I don't think anyone at home is convinced that Josh was standing on one leg.
So this
going
was,
on a diet.
This was interesting. So during an average of 7 years of the follow-up, 123 of the participants died from causes including cancer, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease. These are the guys that couldn't make it, couldn't actually balance for those 10 seconds. So there is a little bit of a link to health, they figure. Yeah.
But what do you think if you've got cardiovascular disease or metabolic disorder or diabetes or whatever? That often correlates with being quite overweight as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to balance.
It should be harder to balance.
It is harder to balance, but you know what? I'm that big girl in the yoga class just giving it that try, you know. I'll stay up.
Fair enough. The trouble with those things is it's a bit like grip strength, press-ups. Every so often they come up with one that's supposed to be like a kind of, a shortcut to understanding whether you're fit and healthy. And then people start working on their grip strength in order to lengthen the lifespan. It immediately is no longer a good test or anything. So don't think that just by practicing standing on one leg, you're going to lengthen your lifespan. I assume that's not right.
Yes,
well,
the cause and the effect.
Factor.
So, yeah.
I did think, though, that the numbers were pretty interesting. The ones that could balance actually did much better when it came to obesity, heart disease, everything. Yeah, so there is a link, it seems.
Well, maybe the
hard to balance when you're big.
Wednesday's Guardian, the sports tracking app Strava,
yeah.
Strava may unwittingly being utilised in modern-day espionage.
There's some good dovetailing here from one story into another.
Yeah.
I didn't know what Strava was, and the way that they put it in the headline is shadowy Strava is like everybody knows what Strava is. So I feel a bit like the Guardian is kind of fat-shaming me.
Right.
With it.
Because you don't share your jogging?
I don't know what Strava is. Sorry,
it's like some
Guardian.
kind of a Fitbit.
Well, that's what it is. It's some sort of communal app for running. You got it? So what is it? Then I don't even know.
So when you go on a run, you press start at the beginning.
If you go on a run.
When you go on a run, Josh, one of these days, you press start or a cycle ride or a swim or anything, and it will. Afterwards, there'll be a little map of where you ran, and then you can share it with your community. And if they are fond of you, they'll give you a little thumbs up.
Okay. So
even on the highest privacy settings, they were still locating these.
Because you can still show where people have done. So this has been. They basically found that this app has kind of been tracking people who work high up in the Israeli defense forces, even like possibly on their nuclear site. And they've been sort of able to kind of get through the system, work around, because people cleverly suppose you can put up your own maps or your own software to it and then get people to run it like they want to run and see how that's going to work for them. And because of that, then you can take the information back. Whatever it is, basically, if you're in the army or something, just don't exercise.
So we saying, just some clarification here. Are you saying that people like our Israeli army officers or whatever have gone for a run and then shared it, and people have used that
to locate military.
And then they can also find out, like someone said, I'm in a race, like a real race, and they won the race, so they can track specific people with all this information. It's out there. And people were following these people and being able to map. And this actually follows a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, another Strava sort of I don't know what you want to call it. Not conspiracy, like whatever it is, a bad thing about Strava. Sorry, this is my first day of a diet, and I've got brain fog from it. Mark Dolan just put me on a diet. And
don't ever go on his diet. That man is the size of a pen.
He insisted that I go on a diet, and it's really messed with my whole brain chemistry. Anyway, the point is that at that one, it literally did follow people around, and they could show people at like Area 51 and all these different in Afghanistan, people who were deployed in Afghanistan, they were able to track their routes. Just don't exercise.
Dana, Strava?
I mean, I'm one of those people, I try to turn the location off on my phone. The government is watching you. They'll find me, though, for my Quirtle score or something like that. It's going to be something so inane when they try to find me.
I was up at my parents' today, and it was my mother's birthday, and she had some envelopes with her name and address on, and my dad was insisting we shred them before we put them in the bin, just because it had their name and address on. No other information. It's extraordinary. I mean, I think there are so many different levels of privacy that people are used to.
You know what? That's actually a really good one to find, because once they get your name and your address and your phone number, they will never stop calling you.
Who is they, though?
You
Well,
don't
it
get
could
those
be your
calls?
mum's boyfriend.
Could be that.
Hi,
yeah.
I'm calling you from the council. We're doing repairs on your. I'm like, okay. He's like, my name is Frank. I'm like, your name isn't Frank. Your name isn't Frank with that accent.
My
Come
dad
on
hears
now.
from Frank again.
I love talking to
That's all for part two.
They don't love me.
That's all for part two. Coming up, we'll be examining Gary Lineker's troubled upbringing, China's latest terrifyingly authoritarian app, and one of the worst festivals I've ever heard of. See you soon.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, Josh Howie and Dana Alexander. Wednesday's Times now, and the author Philippa Gregory has some misgivings about the Netflix show Bridgerton.
Yes, Bridgerton, I haven't had the pleasure, because it just made me laugh when I was just seeing all these dukes and duchesses that were, aristocracy that was black, because I'm like, wait a minute.
Dukes of colour.
So basically, she disliked the program's suggestion that a line of black dukes would pass without comment in 19th century Britain. So this isn't about historical fiction. This is about fictionalizing history that she's having a problem with. It really ignores, the series is set in 1813, which is 6 years after the Slave Trade Act, which banned British subjects and ships from taking part in the slave trade. So it's almost a whitewashing if you look at it. But on the one hand, I can see it because, I remember I just decided I didn't want to be an actor when I started looking at the roles that they gave me. You know what I mean? There's so many accents I do, but, there's probably not use for me and my Scottish accent unless I'm doing a voiceover. All of the characters were lowly. It was inmate, prison guard, sassy lady causing trouble at a talk show.
You'd be so good for that.
Oh, I got that part. I got that part. But so people want to see themselves reflected in this, but I think we do have a little bit of a duty to at least acknowledge that history.
But I haven't watched Bridgerton, but my sense is that it's almost like a steampunk thing, like a, like an alternative future.
I don't think it is.
Alternative past.
No, I don't think it is. It's classical.
Okay, it's just Jane Austen, but with lots of black people.
Yeah.
Well, they did something similar with Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen Hamilton, but those are that's all of the American presidents and things like that, and they're all class. They're all black.
It is an interesting idea that this good intention of sort of colourblind casting has this unintentional benefit of being racist, basically, and making people think like, oh, England was a great place to be if you were black 200 years ago.
See, I get all up in it when they I went to go see How to Train Your Dragon with my little cousins, and I was just like, you better let a black person show up in this magical land.
And this Viking.
And my little cousin, he was so cute. I was like, where are the black people in this movie? He's like, Auntie, they're Saxons. Anglo-Saxons. I was just like, okay, they got a dragon, they can put a black person in here.
Even in this story, Philippa Gregory apparently is not bothered by Black Anne Boleyn, which was another thing that we had recently. Now, that feels to me like more problematic than Bridgerton, because Bridgerton is at least obviously like a fictionalised version of a post-racial 18th century, right?
You got to get to the root of the problem, and we know what that is.
What, Henry
White
VIII?
Jesus.
Oh, white Jesus, okay. Okay. Wednesday's Telegraph, Gary Lineker has shared some surprising insults into his childhood, Josh. It turns out that he was not seeing representation up on the screen either.
No, not at all. I would just like to say that I am available to play Jesus authentically at any point, if that job is out there.
Or maybe Gary Lineker.
Yeah, or Gary Lineker, as it turns out. Yeah, so he is saying that, I don't know, some of the stuff that Gary Lineker comes out with I quite like, and some I think is just ridiculous. This is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard him say. This is in Telegraph. He said, I suffered racist abuse for my darkish skin when I was a boy. And he sort of says it here, pretty much racist abuse. Gary, you didn't.
No.
OK? You didn't, mate. And I find that, like, a ridiculous statement.
You do, but then I remember when I was a kid, I used to get called.
But you are black.
I used to get the P word. I used to get the P word, and I'm just like, no, it's the N word.
But that's
Get it
inaccurate.
right.
That's inaccurate. But it is still racist abuse for somebody towards a person.
For him to
Gary
go,
Lineker is
He's
not
white.
even dark.
He is white. No, he's not.
saying that he is darkest, but he's not saying that anybody's called him a particular ethnicity.
No.
They're just like, oh, you've got darkest skin, like, and that's
You've been out in the sun.
Yeah. So he knows what is he saying? That he knows what racism is, what prejudice is. Come on, man.
Which town was this? Whitehaven? Do you know?
Well, the thing
Leicester, wasn't he?
Is it Leicester? That's strange.
But the thing that he did talk about was that he didn't go through puberty till he was 17, and giving a little bit too much information, I was on a similar trajectory. That was traumatic. In boarding school, not gone through puberty, that has traumatised me forever. And that's why I've got the beard. Just anything, too many, just anything to establish.
I could buy the cigarettes when I was 11, and I did.
Gary Lineker not go through puberty.
Yes, that's what he said. Now that is traumatic. Yeah. And if you're in a football club, in the showers, all that stuff.
It's better
why
than getting.
He's so emotionally intelligent, isn't it? It's why he's so in touch with his feminine side. And stuff.
Yes, he knows what it's like.
Yeah.
I was just embarrassed being mistaken for my dad's wife at age 11. I don't know.
He did marry young, to be fair.
Summer solstice today, of course, and happy birthday, Mum. So we thought we'd include this one from Wednesday's Times, which is not technically speaking history, rather than news, isn't it?
Yes, so how the sun helps shine a light on modern-day geography. So Eratosthenes, I think that's how...
Ooh, yeah, look at that.
Summer solstice is happening. So what Eratosthenes did almost 2,000 years ago is he noticed on the day of the solstice at noon that the stick that he planted in the ground didn't cast a shadow. So what he did... he was Alexander, and then there was another town, I think it was Cynia, it was about 800 kilometers away, which I think worked out to 500 stadia. So what he did was he did the same thing on the same day in the town that was 800 kilometers away, and he measured the angle of the shadow that it cast, and by determining that distance was only 1/50th, the 500, he was able to obviously multiply that distance by 800 kilometers and determine that the Earth is, 40,000?
Yeah.
And he was only off by about 360 kilometers.
It's
no, 8 kilometers.
8 kilometers he was off, 40,000 kilometers.
It was well known, and word reached him that in this other town, the one that was 800 kilometers away, there was a well sunk vertically into the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
On the solstice, on the midday, on the longest day, the sun would shine so straight down this well that you could see the bottom, but no shadow on either side, not any of the bricks. So he knew that the sun was overhead there, but he knew that when he had a stick in the ground where he lived, that there was a shadow at the same time. So that's how he knew.
And then which is...
And that's how he also found... But then he's not the first one to think that the Earth was round. Before that, of course, Pythagoras and Aristotle.
But he proved it.
He proved it.
And
they're still flat earthers. They're still flat earthers.
Got to get those guys down there. What I like about it was they had these people who sort of paced out the distance. 800 kilometres. That's a lot of. I mean, you see them used to with the little wheels. Do you remember those guys?
Yeah.
You see them walking around. But 800 kilometres. That's like the length of the British Isles. Like that would be quite a significant job. I don't think those guys get enough credit for this.
They didn't have much to do back then. They didn't have like iPads.
Eratosthenes is like Steve Jobs getting all the credit for the iPhone. You know, it's like, come on.
But you had the visionary.
Yeah. OK. Great episode of Carl Sagan's Cosmos, if you want to see that. Wednesday's Mail now, and Spain has had enough of Brits' holiday shenanigans, apparently.
Yes, so basically Spain are going to start fining British people for some of their British behaviour. I don't know if it's British to smoke on the beach, but that's something you're going to get fined for not wearing a top as you walk down the road, just wearing your trunks, and
totally go with that.
Doing a wee-wee in the sea. And that could get you £645 fine. So I don't know how exactly that they're going to be spotting that, or if someone's going to sort of pop up with a snorkel and go, it's a bit warm around here.
Yeah. Or if someone's just taking it out and just, boom, just straight in the sea. Who knows?
The British way.
The British way. I mean, what I find so sad, I love a nice, clean beach. I go to beaches all the time. But what I don't like about this initiative is that it's not proactive. It's all about banning. And it looks to me like it's a little bit of a cash grab. We'll see how well it's enforced. But why not do things like have more bins, have more showers? Let's talk about biodegradable soaps that you can probably even sell and make a package from, or make a little bit of money off of. Whenever I vacation in Thailand on the Wednesdays, everybody would get together as a community effort and just clean the beach. Like, there are things that you can do to maintain these things by being proactive instead of just fine, ban. And I mean, when you're saying on a summer day that someone can't walk down the street with a shirt or in a bikini, I mean, that to me says that you want a certain class of traveller.
Or a lot of backsheesh. But what about the wee-wee? I mean, that's quite
the wee-wee thing. But also, what
happens?
happens if you get like a jellyfish sting and you need that wee on you to help out? Is it like you're going to get... Can you explain that to the courts?
You got to bring it on the side.
Yeah.
You got to pack it in a little thermos.
You got to limp out to a building somewhere.
You got to take it to go, Josh.
I think it's mean-spirited. It's one of the great small, affordable pleasures of life, isn't it?
Doing a wee in the sea. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I go to Spain in the first place.
Just to pee in there.
Anyway, summer is here, as you would have gathered from the last two stories, and festival season is upon us, and here is one of the worst ones I've ever heard of, Dana.
Oh, yes. It is a dog meat festival, and by that I mean people are gathering around to eat dog meat, but it's good news because 386 dogs were actually rescued from a truck headed to China for this festival. I think what was so alarming, I think there's a video as well, but what I thought was really alarming is they said that these dogs were likely stolen household guard dogs or pets. Can you imagine someone just like, I don't know, maybe another reason to get a skinny dog.
Yeah, they were
horrific. Yeah, they steal dogs and
guard dogs.
And but the people have been trying to shut this down, activists, and they did a very clever thing. They found the law, and they said that these dogs might be suffering because they're all in cages. They might be suffering from infectious diseases, and because of COVID, obviously the laws have gone a bit extreme in China, stopping this stuff. So they reported that, and then, which is actually really good because if those dogs had infections and stuff, they don't taste very good.
No.
At least now, finally, you want the fit dogs.
Do you remember Blade Runner? Do you see Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Away from Top Gun, the first Blade Runner movie. It's very worth seeing. Some of it's dated now. It's funny which bits immediately came true and which bits are still sort of lagging. But you know the basic plot. Harrison Ford is tasked with identifying androids who are trying to pass as human.
Okay,
and they're very, very... He's an android! And, well, that's still... That's controversial. That's not necessarily true. But anyway, one of the ways they do it is to say, they just say things and see whether a flicker of shock or whatever comes across. And one of those is, do you want to come over to my garden party this weekend? We're having a barbecue. We'll be having some chicken and some dog. And he just says dog as if it's just a perfectly normal thing to have as part of a barbecue. And if there's if the android doesn't register any kind of human emotion at that suggestion, that means they're an android.
What if they were just one of these festivals?
Well, that's it. If they were from this village in China...
It's extraordinarily...
I'm not an android. I just like Chihuahua.
I just think that's quite an interesting... they took it for granted
what a
in
litmus.
Hollywood. That
no one in the world.
No human being would surely. Anyway, Wednesday's Independent now want to chill the bedroom activities of every post-pubescent male in China.
Yeah, China are really outdoing themselves here. So this is the Independent, yes, reporting that they've found, researchers in China have found, created a mind-reading device that can detect when men are watching pornography.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
In what scenario would you be able to put that on them when you couldn't actually just like, oh look, he's looking at pornography?
Well, I think the idea is they're saying that they're using it because you could also, they're like just AI that will see whether you see naked flesh and things like that, but it gets things wrong.
Right.
So I think the way
still
that
in development.
Yeah, but this article seems to be saying that they would like get people to, because it is illegal over there, pornography.
Right.
But actually, this is to like outfit people to watch pornography to then say if it is pornography. I don't know. This is some pretty.
It sounds like
stuff.
you would have to. Everyone would have to have this chip in their brain.
I don't think it's a chip. I think it's just something you. I don't know. It's very Blade Runner-y, actually.
It does. It sounds kind of hypothetical. I'm struggling to see how it.
Well, it works. Supposedly, it's
80% accurate.
80% accurate.
Yeah, but you're going to have to agree to be subject to it, aren't you? Which you're not going to do if you're like.
Well, if you're in China, I don't think you have much choice.
If you know that watching pornography is illegal, you know.
Why would you put that device in your head? Exactly.
I'm not going to wear the thing.
I wish some people could read my mind sometimes, just save me some time on some stink eye. But I think this is so sad because, I mean, if anybody needs a little bit of, like, you know, to free themselves sexually, it's China. Come on, they've had the one-child policy.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of men cannot even find... There's not even enough women to have enough wives for all the men in China. So I mean,
solution.
And I just think as a society with that many more men and sexual repression on top of it, disaster.
I quite
waiting
like,
to
personally,
happen.
I would quite like to trial the app and see whether it worked on me and to see what I considered pornography. I mean, it would be quite interesting to know, wouldn't it?
Some lady rolling down her ankle sock.
Just me watching my old reruns on Live at the Apollo. Guardian next, contrasting rather heavily with that last one. This is a revival in Japanese love letters, Dana. This is much more wholesome.
Yes, don't swipe right. Japanese city encourages daters to send love letters. So I don't know when's the last time you wrote a letter?
Yeah, who knows?
You see,
an actual one-to-one letter, yeah. Like
I had prison pen pals.
Years and years.
Prison pen
I had two prison pen pals.
Are they romantic?
No, are you kidding me? No, we talked about recipes and like how to make pizza out of like Doritos.
Are they female?
They were male. They were male. The women don't want to talk to another woman. Usually they're
Okay.
trying to rinse some guy for some money, you know. I was interested in prison reform, so that's why I was doing it. And I'll tell you, you really do get to know people. It also showed me you got to watch out for those dudes that have penmanship that's too good. Check his record.
Okay.
Check, and if he folds his socks neatly before, there's little signs you can tell people have been to prison, and one of them is good penmanship.
Okay, that's a
Don't
good
forget.
warning. Our final story for the evening, folks, it's a wholesome tale of the most expensive medal of all time, Dana.
Yes. What are we talking about here?
Nobel Prize.
The Nobel, yes,
Yeah.
Russian journalist sells Nobel Peace Prize for $84,500,000. And of course, the money that he's raised are going to help Ukrainian kids. So this award-winning Russian journalist has raised more than $100 million for Ukrainian children, which is amazing. And that's 27 times higher than the old record that was set 27 years ago.
And this is a brand new medal. He only won last year, right? I think.
Yeah, it's a brand new medal, but I think it was more about the auctioning in the hearts of people because if you actually melt it down, I think it's only worth about $10,000 or £100. So great for.
I don't know
What are you going to sell, Josh?
Strangely, I haven't won a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, but I don't know what's that person who's bought the medal going to actually do with it? Sort of go around with it. Oh, look at me! I got the Nobel Prize.
It's a conversation piece, all right. I spent $85 million for this. That is all we have time for. Thank you so much to my guests, Dana and Josh. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've been Simon Evans. I'll be back in this chair tomorrow night. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great Wednesday. Thanks very much. Take care. Good night.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin,